All right, welcome. So if you've ever built anything in React, you have definitely hit this wall. You've got two components, they need to share some data, but they just can't talk to each other. Well, today, we're going to smash through that wall with one of React's most important patterns.
I like to call this the component standoff. You know the feeling. You have an input component over here, a display component over there, and then it hits you. They both need to know about the exact same piece of information. It's a classic, and let's be honest, a kind of frustrating part of learning React.
And it always leads to this question, right? You're looking at your code thinking, come on, why can't you two just share the data? They're right next to each other in the code. It feels like they should just be able to communicate. So what's really going on here?
So let's break it down. The whole issue really comes down to a core rule in React. Data flows one way. It flows down, from parent to child. Our input and display components here, they're siblings. They're on the same level of the family tree. That means there's basically a wall between them. They're in their own little worlds, and they have no direct line to share their state.
So how do we fix this standoff? Well, the solution is actually pretty elegant and makes a ton of sense. We let the parent decide. Instead of having the sibling components trying to figure it out on their own, we move that responsibility up the chain of command.
And this brings us to the official pattern. It's called lifting state up. And honestly, the name says it all. It is literally the practice of finding that piece of state that multiple children need, and you lift it up into their closest common parent. From that moment on, the parent is the one in charge of that data.
And the best part? It boils down to a super simple four-step process. First, you just identify the piece of state that needs to be shared. Second, you find the nearest parent component that they both share. Third, you move the actual state logic, your useState hook, into that parent. And finally, you just pass the data and any functions to update it back down to the children as props. That's it.
Okay, theory is one thing, but let's get our hands dirty and see what this actually looks like in the code. We're going to walk through a really simple example that'll make this whole concept click.
Seriously, this one line of code right here, this is the heart of the entire operation. That useState hook, which probably used to live inside one of the child components, has now been lifted into the parent. The parent now officially owns this piece of state, making it our single source of truth.
So now that the parent is the boss of the state, it has a new, very important job. It has to distribute the data and the ability to change that data down to its children. And it does that using props.
And here you can see the two sides of the coin perfectly. The input component, whose job is to change the data, well, it gets the onChange function as a prop. Meanwhile, the display component, which just needs to read the data, gets the actual value. Two different kids, two different jobs, and they're both managed perfectly by the parent.
Let's zoom in on the input component for a second. Its life just got way simpler. It doesn't manage any state itself anymore. Its one and only job is to tell the parent when something changes.
And this is how it does it. When the user types in the input box, it just calls that onChange function it received as a prop, passing the new text up. It's like a messenger. It runs up to its boss, the parent, and says, hey, here's the new info. It doesn't know or care what the parent does with it. It just reports the change.
Now, what about its sibling, the display component? Well, its job is even easier. It's purely presentational. It's what we sometimes call a dumb component, in the best way possible. It just shows whatever data you hand to it.
It receives the value directly from the parent as a prop, and boom, it displays it. And here's the real magic. Because this value is coming from that single source of truth in the parent, this component will automatically re-render and is always perfectly in sync. When the input component tells the parent to update, the parent state changes, and that change immediately flows right back down to the display component. No more out-of-sync bugs. So, we've done it. We've broken the standoff, our components are talking through their parent, everything's great. But what's the real payoff here? I mean, why is this pattern so critical for writing good, clean React apps?
Well, the difference is just night and day. Before, syncing data was a manual, bug-prone nightmare. Now, it's automatic and totally reliable. Your components go from being low reusability, complex things, to being highly reusable and simple. And my favorite part? Debugging. You're no longer hunting for a bug across multiple component files. You just go to the one parent component and look at the state. It's so much easier.
So you see, lifting state up is so much more than a trick for sharing data. It's a core principle. It centralizes your logic, it creates that all-important single source of truth, and it just simplifies your entire application.
By embracing this pattern, you literally take what could be complete component chaos, a tangled mess of different states all trying to stay in sync, and you transform it into clean, predictable, and so much more maintainable code. It's a massive win.
And this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. You've now mastered creating a single source of truth for your component state. So, my question to you is, where else in your app can you apply this powerful principle? Think about things like app-wide configuration, or maybe user authentication data, or even theming information. The idea of a single source of truth is one of the most powerful tools in your React toolkit. Now you have it.